speed.
I had been a screenwriter for several years, for 10 years or so, leading up to Payback, and I wanted to direct, and I was looking for something to do, and I came across the novel, The Hunter, written by Richard Stark, which is a pseudonym for Donald Westlake, and read it and thought it would make a great, being aware that it was a source material for Point Blank, but I read the book and I thought it would be a great little gritty crime movie, really low budget thing that I could get off the ground as a director. So I wanted to start really small, thinking that's how I would have a chance to get going with something. At the time, I had just finished working on Conspiracy Theory, which was with Dick Donner and Mel Gibson.
I was driving in the Warner Brothers gate, and there was a kid in shorts, and it had a little sign that just said, "Bill Wright for work, for money." And I stopped, and I said, "What do you mean write?" He said, I'm a writer." I said, "Can you prove it in any way?" He said, "Just give me a chance, sir. Just give me a chance." So we gave him a chance. He wrote a script called Conspiracy Theory, and so he came on that.
So I had been around, I'd been on the set all the time. With Dick's blessing, I was another resource from Mel as far as, because that was an original script, I had created those characters. So Mel sometimes would have a question about the character's backstory or how did he get here or there. And so I had a lot of contact with Mel that way.
He stayed for the whole run of the picture, the entire run. I mean, you couldn't you couldn't go to the bathroom without sitting on Brian. I fell in love with him. His talent was extraordinary.
Take it from there, that's good.
I wasn't nervous at all about working with a first-time director. Brian was just, there's an innocence about him, or a lack of guile, mixed with a real searing intelligence. And he was able, like some directors are, experienced or not, to amalgamate everyone with a zen. That's not easy.
His instincts and his storytelling prowess are, I mean, they're great. He's a great writer, and he has really good instincts about stuff. I mean, he was always with Donner on the Conspiracy Theory, and he'd always have his little notes. And, you know, he would say things, and you would go, well, he's in the right direction there. What he said was valuable, not silly, and sometimes it would just be a little side comment, you know, because he wasn't like full bore into, you know, handing down directions. I mean, he left that job to Donner, but if he was afraid of something or worried about something or was concerned about the tone that had to come across, he'd say something. And I would take his comments and say, those are good comments.
They really hit it off. Brian also has this wonderful sense of humor. And Mel does the same thing. Mel has he has the greatest command of the English language of any person I've ever known in my life. And it's not a malaprop, it's a melaprop. And if you don't get it, Mel keeps going. It's his own enjoyment.
Okay? That was a mic check. Mics are working. Good work, sir. Thank you. Here we go.
Brian would get it, and I'd get it. And then we started to realize, wow, Brian's got these things too. They were very simpatico, those two guys. It worked out great.
E-mark. And action, Greg.
Dick had kind of taken me under his wing and was teaching me about camera setups and lenses and was always, he had a lot of fun teasing me about different things, but he was trying to help me that way because he knew I wanted to direct. I'd be behind the monitors and Dick would be up by camera. It would be, you know, it's a medium shot of Patrick Stewart. So Patrick's here and 5 feet away is the camera with some lens on it. And I'm looking at what the image size is on the monitor. And Dick would say, hey, you know, and he'd be like, boy wonder, you know, and I'd like look up in front of like 75 people, you know, and I'm like, yes. And he's like, look at that TV screen. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, you see how big Patrick's face is? I'm like, yes. He goes, what lens do I have on? Look at how far the camera is from him. What lens do I have on? You know, I'm probably saying lenses that don't exist, but I'd say a 28. And he'd be like, it's a 16, for God's sakes. But he would, you know, what's going to happen to you? You're never going to amount to anything. You know, and he'd be just shouting this in front of, like, you know, but then I would just be like, I'd be watching every day, like, that must be a 35, or that must be a 75 or something, you know. And then I start to get closer. And when I started getting it right, he wouldn't ask me anymore because he had no interest in not being able to embarrass me in front of everybody.
Hey, only Mark. Set.
Action.
Action. Thank you.
He was really ready to go out and direct then. He just needed a kick in the ass. He proved himself. I mean, I think he's very special. His wife is phenomenal. His kids are great. His dogs are special. Ask him, he'll tell you all these things. But I love him, and if I was able to help him in any way, what a joy to hear it.
Cut.
Did I block her again?
But anyways, when we're in post on that movie, and I was working on the screenplay for Payback, I was in Dick's office one day, and Dick was about to start ADR on conspiracy theory with Mel, and he was tied up with something on the phone, and he said to me, go down to ADR 2 on the lot, because Mel's waiting down there to start, and just tell him I'm going to be there in 5 minutes and that he should start. And I was on my way home, and I had all my scripts and notes and stuff for Payback under my arm. And Mel said to me, what's that? You know, what are you working on? I told him about what it was, and I said it was the book that Point Blank was based on.
He'd written a first act, and it was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. You see a guy get back on his feet again. Where's he been? You know, I looked at that 30 pages and I said, hey, Brian, this is great. You want to write the rest of it? And he says, He said, I'll never be able to direct it. So he really wanted to direct. He said, you know, I'll just write it and someone else will direct it. I said, look, I'll tell you what. If you finish it and it's cool, I'll give you a shot.
Rehearsal. Ready, and. Half speed, action, please.
So I thought, oh, okay, that's cool. But, you know, I thought he was just being nice to me. But when I was finished writing the script, I thought, well, what the heck, I'll send it to him. He'll read it, and he'll say, well, it's not for me, but good luck, and that'll be the end of it.
Val, what?
So I finished the script, I called him up, I sent him the script, and I don't know, maybe a week went by, and the phone rang one day, and it was Mel, and he had some chit-chat and small talk. And in my head, I thought, well, he's going to say, I really liked it, good luck with it, it's not for me. And he said, oh, I read the script. And I said, yeah. And then he said, well, can you be ready to shoot in 12 weeks? Which is the first thing. He didn't say, I like it. He just said, can you be ready to shoot in 12 weeks? And having no idea, I said, yeah, I can be ready to shoot in 12 weeks. And literally 13 weeks later, we were shooting.
E only, Mark.
Looky here. How's that, sweet?
Val! What? Cut! Tail sticks!
Once Mel came on, we were prepping. We just were prepping. I was hiring people and getting ready to go right away. And and the philosophy of it was still to try to do it, that it was a gritty, kind of low budget kind of story, and we would be serving it well, trying to keep that in mind as we went about trying to make the whole thing.
No.
I became the cinematographer on Payback because I had worked with Icon before. The first film I ever shot was 187. The odd thing was that typically a first-time director such as Brian, the traditional ways would say, work with a very experienced DP, someone who's been around for many, many years, to say, kids, sit back, this is the way we make a movie. And they stuck me with them, so I was a second-time DP with a first-time director. So we both looked at each other like, okay, whatever you want to do. So we sort of cut each other's leashes and got to play a lot.
Dick Donner, again, was a kind of like a great resource. Like, I'd be prepping in Chicago and the phone would ring in my hotel room at 11 at night, and I'd kind of blearily say hello, and Dick would say, you know, hey, I don't want you going out. Don't go out. You got to get your sleep. And I'd say, I am sleeping, Dick. He's like, good. And he'd hang up the phone. Or again, it'd be midnight. And of course, it's 10 o'clock where Dick is, and the phone would ring, and I'd wake up, and he'd say, if it's a point of view, what lens do you use? And I'd say, 50? And he'd say, 35, 35. What the hell are you doing? And then he'd hang up the phone, and that went on and on. But actually, I would call Dick all the time, so he was kind of my lifeline, so to speak.
Makeup final touches, camera final touches will happen at the end of this alley at that side.
It doesn't matter if you're the first timer. You're going to be kind of jumpy, and I was, but the film worked. And Brian was, but the film worked. There's something to be said for being hungry and being inexperienced. Sometimes it will lead you to make choices that are really unorthodox, but you just have a feeling about it. But a seasoned director wouldn't go there,
10 miles an hour down, take us down, please, Bill. Hold on tight. Hold on, everybody. 10 miles an hour. Keep an eye on that.
The greatest thing of working with Icon, and certainly Mel Gibson, is that as much as it is a studio picture, you're not necessarily working as much for the studio as you're working for the producers. And so Steve McAvity and Mel, as long as they gave their blessing, Brian and I can go do what we want.
And cut. Very good. Pull up to the shade there, Bill, and we'll resend anything we said. Hold on. Cut.
So we had a nice sized sandbox to play in, and not a lot of guidance outside of it, and it actually made it a lot of fun. One of the things we did was a lot of image research. I remember William Klein's New York was both of our favorite books that we had pulled images from. I, coming from the world of more visuals and Brian from the world of words, I brought a lot of visual reference to him. So we did watch a lot of the films of the 70s.
Like the Peck and Paw and the Siegel movies, and like The Getaway or Kill Charlie Varick. Charlie Varick is one of my favorites from that era. Of course, Point Blank, John Boorman did. But they all had that real sort of hard, sort of urban flavor, relentless in some ways. And they didn't ask the audience for any sympathy. I think the ad campaign that we put was get ready to root for the bad guy. Nobody had a halo and wings in those old films, and it was an homage to those, really.
We wanted to get that grainy, dirty kind of, it looks like someone set their wet coffee cups on top of the film while it was being cut.
We shot in Chicago and ultimately then in LA, but we shot in downtown Chicago for a great bit of it for our exteriors, which was wonderful. And it was meant to be maybe New York, maybe nowhere USA.
New York is a bear to shoot in. And we had just shot in New York before this on Conspiracy Theory. Something about Chicago and that downtown area of Chicago, which is so kind of sturdy and imposing. And as soon as we started scouting it, it just really popped out as the place to be. Organized crime has its own particular feel in Chicago that isn't so much the mafia New York feel.
The thought was it was inspired by a film in the 70s, and it probably would have taken place in New York, yet we didn't want to say it was New York, and we didn't want to say it was the 70s.
In fact, if you look at it, there's cars from the 90s driving around in the background sometimes, and it's just, the things that you feature are their own little world within that world. So you have to suspend belief at some point and just go in that world.
Why, did I miss something?
Yeah. They weren't wearing their seatbelts. We'll hit them on Friday.
I purposely had a lot of very experienced actors on it to make it easier on me. We only had a 50-day shooting schedule, so I didn't have time to mess around too much. And those guys would all come in and nail things, and it was the philosophy of the movie too was 2 takes, 3 takes, and try to move on.
All right, here we go. Hey, Mark. B. Mark. Skylines, guys.
Same crew, chows, twice a week, Tuesday and Friday. Always between 11 and 12, always the same route.
Greg just came in and did a reading that just floored me. It was just, he was the guy, he had it down, and he physically created this character with the way he rolled his shoulder. He very much reminded me of James Caan in The Godfather.
130 grand. See, the beauty of the chows is they won't go to the cops. They keep everything in-house.
Notice anything about those guys, Val?
They look nasty. Probably all kung fu motherfuckers. Why, did I meet something?
Greg's wonderful. And Greg's been everywhere, man. He's been around a long time, and he's always good. And he was excellent in this. He was, there was something so, he was so completely slimy and funny at the same time.
Hi, sweetie.
I found myself laughing at even the little lip quiver stuff he did. And
Well, the script, you know, I read the script, and the script is just a lot of fun, a lot of action. The character Val's once-in-a-lifetime part. He's great. He's great, a lot of fun. I think when you look inside these characters and sort of what makes them tick, there are fears, there are wants, there are desires, and in certain personalities, those things come off funny, you know? They're just funny by the situation that you put them in.
we'll hit him on Friday.
Hubba, hubba, hubba.
All right, one more.
There's always some part that, for whatever reason, actors respond to. For whatever reason, it was that part in this script. Albert Brooks wanted to play him, and Ted Danson wanted to play him, but very much comedic actors wanting to play a villain responded to it. And I appreciated that they were interested. Because he was funny, I wanted a more serious guy trying to be funny rather than a comic bringing the funny stuff and then trying to be serious with it.
Cut, release traffic! Thank you!
There was definitely a certain confidence that we carried about just letting the scene play out in one place and not feel like we had to second guess ourselves or that we had to get into sort of the new classic style of jumping into huge close-ups all the time. And as a result of that, we got that 70s feel by letting a scene play out, by putting the camera in a place that felt right for the scene and let the scene come to us, certainly in a John Ford or Peckinpah way. We wound up using two cameras on that film, A and B camera, which was great. Mark O'Kane was on A camera and Malcolm Brown on B. And I love using two cameras when we can. It's certainly great for actors' performance if you can capture that great performance from multiple angles. As well, for certain stunts, it's a great thing to do. We didn't do 9 or 15 camera setups for stunts. We just kept it very simple, which made it feel very 70s as well. It's interesting, with lighting with hard light and the style of film it is, sometimes single camera can be the best way to go, but we found angles that would work for multiple cameras, even though they were usually on the same axis, so that we would be able to work in the same lighting setup.
I mean, I'll frame it up more, but we're going to move over more anyway. We're not level or anything.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right, so we got this. I have that one, and then we'll switch my.
It's Porter. Follow him.
I got that motherfucker.
What we tried to get across in the movie was that there's this world. I don't care about the straight world in the movie, these guys on the street that are going to work. And for that reason, Ha dressed them all in black, white, and gray tones. In fact, in the opening scene, when Mel picks the guy's pocket, when you're on Mel, everyone in the background is walking away from him. You don't see the face of anybody. So anyone who's not a gangster or a heister or a prostitute, anyone who's not in our world, we're not interested in this movie. And Ha also did, with all the characters, she did a fantastic job of just dressing, putting their character into the clothes and figuring out what they should look like and how they should fit into the world.
Well, for me, it's very important. The first time we see that person on screen, you got to know who they are. So I work very close to actor. I always listen to what they have to say. I always come in and ask them, okay, how are you going to play this guy? What are you thinking? I want to know the background, because, actors, I've got to live with that characters for, just say, 3 or 4 or 6 months. If the actor is putting the clothes on and not be conscious about the clothes at all, then you're doing your job. We talk about not really having a lot of color, more of the texture and the contrast of it, a lot more texture. Like if you really look at it, see how the character of Lucy Liu, lots of different texture in it, and interesting details on her.
Apartment 718, ma'am. Go right in.
I think the first thing was you saw her, she walked into the elevator. I wanted instantly the audience to look and say, who is that girl? What is she about? I think that was the reason why I did that.
Well, the costume designer, she had some ideas, and we did a couple fittings, and then we went to Trashy Lingerie, and she decided that she needs to be more, as soon as she walks in, she's got to have a serious pose, you know what I mean? She really has to take charge, and so she thought that maybe something with a... I saw something on his face, like, what's going on? Oh, he's such a monkey.
I was unaware of the impact that Mel can have on anyone's street at any one given time. It was like entering a coliseum. Really, you felt like you were going up gladiator style. I'm not particularly precious, and it's just easier to keep the rollers in and walk to set. And I remember flinging open my trailer, and much to my chagrin, there were 400 people on either side of the streets screaming his name, and there I am having to behave in front of all of his fans.
That cracks me up.
Bless the crowds, they were very respectful of Mel, so action, you had 2,000 people silent.
Let him go. Now.
Well, for me, it's fun to be the tough guy, even though I end up being sort of a failed tough guy. But to butt heads with Mel Gibson, and to hold a gun and to have bullets whizzing by me, that's not something as an actor, I get to do as much of as I'd like.
Get on the shot. Hubba, hubba, hubba.
I've always wanted a great death scene. I think Brian has provided me with one.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's horrible.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great.
Very funny. It's hilarious.
In the morning, in the makeup trailer, before we start work, we play the soundtrack to Shaft. It really gets you right into that mood, that Don Siegel kind of mood. It works very well, and Brian loves being in the makeup trailer. He loves being, there with the actors and sort of starting out the day.
I think it looks natural.
We surrounded him with a great crew, and everyone's responding to it. And here we are, 13 days in. Things are going great. On time, on schedule, on budget. No complaints from me.
We didn't know, but Timmy just kind of
Mick did the jumping on the stagecoach in Maverick for Mel. He's doubled Mel for years.
Try not to do it now.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see the bulges in his. You can see where the.
My bad knees and ankles.
See where the bolts are sticking through his knees and stuff.
It's taking its toll. That's for sure.
And we also have the. Erickson and I storyboarded the entire film, and I remember the night before I was ready to start shooting, Dick called me one last time, and he said, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" Blah blah blah, and I said, "Yeah." And he said, and I very proudly told him I had storyboarded the entire movie, and he said, "What?" And I said, "I storyboarded the entire movie," and he said, "You're crazy. You're out of your mind." And I'm like, no, it's great. And he said, you'll throw it out. By day 5, it'll be gone. You'll throw it out. It's not going to work. And I said, what do you mean? It's going to work. And he's like, no, it's not going to work. And by the second day, I think I had thrown it out. It was all theoretical, And Dick said to me, he said, you get to the set and let the actors rehearse it and see where they go and then block it out based on where they move around on the set. Unless what they're doing makes no sense, He's like, the actors will tell you how to block it out. You don't need a shot list.
The original script that Brian wrote, and also The Hunter, it's unapologetic. And there's something quite wonderful about that. The character of Parker, as the script was originally called, had absolutely no redeeming qualities whatsoever, except for the fact that had unbelievable drive to push him forward. After a certain amount of time, just pushing that ball uphill, you actually learn to love the person because they have such drive.
And action!
You get Mel because Humphrey Bogart's dead, you know. It has nothing to do with film noir. It's that attitude of Humphrey Bogart, Robert Mitchum, these kind of hard-bitten characters that you saw a lot after World War II. And it's never said in the movie, but you can almost assume this guy's come back from the war.
I had imagined that he came from a family where his father was a pretty mean guy and he used to beat the daylights out of his mother. And he didn't like his father beating his mother, and he probably beat the hell out of his father at one point when he got big enough. And he was probably, because he came from this kind of broken home, pretty dreary family, he engaged in petty crime, theft or whatever, which resulted in him doing some time as a teenager. So he's in a reform situation. He got out, he learned a few more tricks. He got into bigger and better sort of heisty kind of not your 7-Eleven stuff, but real kind of, capers, and got busted again and was given the choice to either do time in the penitentiary or join the Marine Corps. And he thought, all right, I'll join the Marine Corps. And he probably did some time overseas someplace, who knows, and he tough as nails, he came back, and he just, with his knowledge, he resumed his life of crime.
So it's really it's like kissing.
It's like the Romeo and Juliet scene. She's in the balcony.
Are you sure it's not Rapunzel?
Yeah.
Erickson was inserts to him wasn't just something to throw away and give to some insert unit to do.
A lot of the inserts that were done up front were designed or we thought about doing. The rest of them, once the edit was being put together, were shot in my house in Venice. The newspaper, a lot of other things, stamping out a cigarette under his foot in an alley was my back alley in Venice, because as we looked at the movie, we saw what those were and what the needs were, what Brian needed, and we shot them very specifically. We didn't just go grab them to fulfill a checklist. We actually wanted them to help establish the character.
The gun in the opening credits at the pawn shop, that's all Mel handling the gun. You want to understand this guy knows what a gun is and how to deal with it, so it's character stuff. It's not just an insert, it's character stuff. But even little kind of odd things like when it's $2.98 at the diner and he puts down $3, the way, and that's Mel there, we're close on his hand, but there's something predatory about how he takes those pennies off the counter.
Hey, my cigarette!
Actually, in that opening montage is one of my favorite shots of the movie, which is simply a shot of Mel looking into a mirror trying to smile like the guy's image that he had stolen from his wallet. And that was one of those very simple shots, but incredibly satisfying. He was in a bathroom set that Richard Hoover designed in a warehouse in Chicago. The last thing we shot in Chicago before leaving. And all that it was a camera in a room, Mel standing there, and there wasn't enough room for anyone else. And we took this small light called a Tweenie, and I just set it into the sink so it glowed up. It's one of those shots that reveals character. And to me, that's my job as a cinematographer, is to help reveal that character. So that shot did it. There's bigger shots, and there's stunts, and there's much larger scale lighting, but that shot sort of epitomized our style.
Talking to actors wasn't intimidating to me, because I had done it before, but just not under the job description of director. For me, Mel was Mel, you know, from Conspiracy Theory. I wasn't thinking that a movie star's coming in who I don't know and that kind of thing.
Well, you're the one that left town, Mrs. Bronson, you tell me. Up! Up!
For example, I was much more intimidated by James Coburn because I didn't know him. He's this kind of legend from the 60s, and he's in The Great Escape. So I didn't give a line of direction to Coburn.
Oh, Jesus. Well, I thought you were dead. Well, but what are you going to do? You're just going to lie there?
Cut!
Go on, get your asses out there. Go get him.
I'd say cut, and he'd look over at me, and I'd say, that was cool. And he's like, do you have any notes? And I said, no. And then, so finally, by like the third thing he did, he would just look over. I'd say cut, and he'd look over and go, cool? And I'd say, cool. And, you know, or I'd give him thumbs up. You know, that's my direction to him.
70,000? It's only 70,000? Jesus, that's more than my suits cost, for Christ. That's not as much as my suits cost. I could have, my suits. I mean, it's a strange piece. My suits cost more than that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever played a character like that. All the characters I've had, they've been, you know, either really vicious people or they've had a lot of great sense of humor to them. You know, I always try to put a little humor in characters anyway. You two are fired.
I just like watching him. I like the toothy grin. He's passed away now, God rest his soul. But I always liked seeing him in films as a kid. And when I met him, I wasn't disappointed. He was sort of a more, you know, bigger, sort of more avuncular version of our man Flint. You know, he sort of had the teeth and the, you know, the voice, and you know, the voice was amazing. The stogies, you know.
And actually, it's only 70. Tell her that, will you? I know where I've seen you. I've seen you on chicken buckets.
You motherfucker.
Colonel Sanders.
Oh, Mel's a ball to work with, you know, because he has a great sense of humor, and, you know, he's always coming back with stuff, you know, we play off of that. We worked in Maverick, and that was great. That was like going to a party every day. I just wish there was more to do. This is the only scene I'm in this thing. It's the end here. And he called me up, wanted me to do the thing. I said, of course, why not?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
I think we're good between all the exits and everything. Yeah.
Very nice.
And we were going to do the big shot over Mel's back, going in, coming around on a 180, and discovering her in the back who shoots him. He goes down.
Quiet. Ah! Oh, Jesus! Wait till I'm out of the fucking way! All right, okay?
Greg Henry's hysterical. And terrifying once you call action. Terrifying, malevolent little creature. Off camera, what a sweet little delight. I mean, everyone had a crush on Greg, I'm sure. Just such a delight, so much fun.
Oh, you were great! Yeah, everything's cool.
Cut!
Both he and Mel were hilarious to be with. They're pranksters. There's the scene after the officer and a gentleman-style walk down the hallway where I'm lying in bed, and then there's a flashback. And so Mennonite style, I was fully in character moments before we called action. So I was lying in bed in this lovely Zen state. And it happened to be October 31st, but I didn't remember this that day. Action, and I hear this, Lynn. I roll over, yes, sweetie. And I look, and there's a werewolf mask in my face. And I scream, holy motherfucking Jesus. I leapt out of the bed, and it was Mel. We'd done like 3 takes really romantically and intense. And the fourth take, he decided to sport this horrendous werewolf mask.
I didn't think I was in shot.
38 Boston, take 1.
C marker. C mark.
Action.
140 grand
140 apiece.
total. In thinking about the script that was written by Brian, it was so tight, and I didn't want any extra fat on the bone because that was unnecessary. So I remember wondering, well, how do I articulate who she is with such there's not a lot of screen time, and she has a history. So the moment of the untied lace and choosing shoes where I could show that she was, 9 degrees off kilter.
This particular script, when I read this character, it just popped in my head. This has to be that way. So I was looking and looking for, and just find the right shoes. When I brought it into her, she said, that's exactly what this character's about.
Hey, you know what? Porter? It's funny. This will kill you. It's always 140 grand. Jesus fuck! Wait a fucking way! Jesus. Okay.
To bring up Dick, one night Dick called me after I had been at it for a couple of weeks, and he's like, how's it going? And I said, it's going good. And he was like, are you tired? And I'm like, yes, I'm tired. And he said, it's hard. It's a hard job, isn't it? And I'm just kind of going along with the kind of not really saying what I'm feeling. I'm like, yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard. And finally he gave me this kind of in, and he said, but you're having a little bit of fun doing it though, right? And I just stopped and I go, Dick, it's the greatest job on the face of the earth. And I said, all my life, I've been trying to kind of find my place in the world. And I said, it's the only job, and I don't like to write. I don't enjoy writing. And I find it very difficult and very onerous and very just a chore to get through. And I said to him, I go, this experience is so great. And there's a long silence, and Dick goes, it's the greatest job on the face of the earth. And he goes, but don't tell anybody. He goes, don't tell, and just keep telling everyone you're tired and you're miserable, because you don't want this getting out. What a great job being a film director is.
Listen, no matter what the argument always comes down to, the director or the writer, it's about the writer, it's not about the director. My compliments, they were two of my best.
No, they lull too easy.
.48. Bill Devane is great. I mean, the guy is really great. I could watch that guy all day long. He's very interesting to watch.
I'm sorry to bother you, but there's a problem. A man is in my office with a gun. He says he'll kill me unless the outfit pays him $130,000 that one of our lieutenants stole.
70,000. It's 70. Let me talk to him.
Her. He wants to speak to you. Directing is not a difficult job. It's totally overrated. It's just that over the last 20 years, the directors have been a little bit brighter guys, so they get talking to guys like you, and they convince guys like you that they're the power behind the throne, and, so they're the big guys. But without guys like Brian, you got nothing. Wonderful script. Yeah, you can't make, you could destroy a good script, but you can't make one on the floor.
William Devane I had grown up watching, from Marathon Man and just all countless things he had done, television stuff he had done. Not that I wasn't intimidated by him, but he's more of a kind of a character, working actor. He was very easy to talk to, but those guys are such pros. It would be a lie to imply that I was creating their performances. They would come in with an idea of what to do, and I would nudge it a little bit here or there.
Speak to me, Carter.
You just don't get it, do you dumb fuck? It's make-believe, I mean, I graduated from high school with 9 shop credits. Wore a suit once when I was confirmed. I played Kennedy, and I haven't been able to get out of a suit since, so I have no idea why they hire me to play these parts. I'm basically a plumber.
97 Jackson, take 2.
My compliments, they were two of my best.
No, they lull too easy.
Bring him that second roll there, Jason.
Want to rehearse again with Ray coming up at the dock?
We had one covered set for weather in Chicago, but all our sets were all built at Warner Brothers on the sound stages at Warner Brothers, which was always a thrill for me because I had been on those sets on other movies that I'd written but hadn't directed, and it was just kind of a thrill to be on the lot at Warner Brothers, you know, walking onto a stage and it's your movie that's going. And
Yeah. What's his name?
He took your job after you.
We built 5 or 6 sets here in LA, and this is our cleanest spot, which is Rosie's apartment, and we designed symmetrical architecture. The idea was to make something beautiful but not very livable.
Oh, good. Oh, so Porter.
Maria's this kind of pretty, tough Philly chick. Perfect, you know, for what she had to play, and she did it well. It was sort of dry, and, you know, there was something hot about her and something pedestrian about her.
What's his name?
Porter. He took your job after you left. He's just as tough, but he won't leave me, will you, baby? Mwah.
It's my first big movie, really. I'd done Permanent Midnight, but my first big kind of movie, and with a movie star, like with Mel Gibson, I was terribly intimidated.
You wanna sit down or something?
No, thanks, I can't stay here.
There are a couple of movies in my life that have stuck with me so much, and Braveheart was one of them, where I was literally in the theater with my friend Rhea, weeping like this. And I would just remember being so moved by him.
I'm looking for a syndicate. What do I say? I'm looking for a syndicate boy.
I remember not being terribly confident, ever. Not one day. Feeling like I was the new kid on the block and really scared.
And I need to ask a favor.
A favor? Maybe you're not the same as ever.
Brian was open to the idea of this woman, though she had been a prostitute, that she wasn't just that. That was her job and something she did, but they had a relationship and a friendship, and what does that mean? And she's a complicated human being.
Can't use Star Service anymore because he beats up all the girls. He almost killed one.
You.
Does it matter?
We talk a lot about her character, and I want a little bit hint of what her past was about, but not overly done it, you know. So that was the reason why I kind of put into pants instead of into more like skimpy, typical outfit.
Look, you think I'm gonna tell?
How strong are you, Parker? Parker.
Inside, I was so young still. And I was putting on this facade of toughness, which really worked for the character of Rosie, because she was kind of doing that, you know? This young girl who lived a kind of a hard life.
It's the only Mark who terrified of his own fucking shadow.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Well, then I guess you must be the lucky girl.
I remember I had to do this scene where after Greg Henry comes in and kind of beats me up a bit, and I'm like crying on the floor. We're on this big sound stage at Warner Brothers, and I would have to go into the other room to prepare. You know, it's like early acting days where I was like, oh, I gotta prepare. Okay, dead puppies, dead puppies. I try to think of something to make myself upset. And I was howling, and the set's totally quiet, and Brian would come back and be like, are you okay? And I'd say, yes. And I'd walk out in the other room, and Mel would be just kind of joking and playing, and when he had to do a scene like that, he would literally be laughing and just come on and be able to, and I was completely inspired by that.
What's up? You set?
The first night I met Mel Gibson, we went out with all of his friends to like a steakhouse in Chicago. And here I am, like this little girl from Philly, like sitting with this most brilliant, beautiful, life-affirming man, and I didn't even know what to do with it. You know, we went to this bar afterwards, and he found out it was my mom's birthday, who lives in Philly. And he's like, someone bring a phone to the table. And got a phone and called my mother in the middle of the night in Philadelphia for her birthday, and I'll never forget it. It was the sweetest kindest thing, and you just didn't have to do it. But he's just sort of like that.
This is Satan Pierre. Pierre Satan.
Yes, sit down.
You have to.
Very nice.
I was given a lot of freedom, and Brian was very supportive in that, as was everyone at Icon, and Mel as well. So I definitely enjoyed it as a cinematographer, and I think that creatively it was a blast. I had a lot of fun doing it.
I think it's Bruce's time for the horns.
Jimmy, working.
Bruce is a little horny.
I'm very horny.
It's my favorite film. It's one of my favorite work, really, that I felt that I was able to create and have so much fun with the characters and the actors and the director. I mean, it was one of the best work I've done.
Hey, he's a nice devil.
My pride in my relationship with Brian is just the fact that I have Brian as a friend. And it's been a wonderful friendship. If you're going to do it with a first-timer like that, nobody better than Mel Gibson. I mean, really, the two of them, I think they were at odds at times, but they were simpatico, they understood it, they came together, they were in each other's minds. Brian took control. Brian was ready. There's a lot of guys step off and they're not ready, they're not in command. I thought Brian did an extraordinary job.
Again, to bring up Dick, like, I don't have a big action when I call action. Generally, I just say action. You know, I say it loud enough for everyone to hear me. And I remember the very first day, Dick, we were at the Warner Ranch, probably towards the end of shooting, and Dick came to the set to visit. And we knew he was coming. And we were getting ready to roll on a shot, and it was an exterior, a pickup we were doing that we didn't get in Chicago. So we had recreated the sidewalk where Mel's sitting at the end of the movie. And out of the corner of my eye, I can see Dick's, you know, big kind of, it's like the president arriving, because there's like a lead car, and then there's a, you know, a car with, you know, someone else in it, and I know Dick's like arriving on the set. But we're getting ready to roll, and he doesn't know that I've seen him, and I can see him kind of out of the corner of my eye sneaking around and getting in behind me. I'm not right behind me, but he's just getting in behind me, and he's waiting, you know, for us to finish so he can come say hi and push me around a little bit and stuff. And I know he's watching, and he's right behind me, so we're getting ready to roll, and Dick calls action like it's God on top of Mount Sinai, you know, dictating the 10 Commandments. And so we're getting ready to roll, and I said, action, you know, action, just the way Dick says it. And I could even, out of the corner of my eye, I could see him kind of react. And then we ran the scene, and I'll cut the same way Dick calls it, and all of a sudden he's there. He's like, "Hey, kid." He's like, "Oh, that was great." He goes, "You really call it. He goes, "Where'd you learn how to call it like that?" And I'm looking at him, and I said, "I learned it from you, Dick." And it was so funny because he got tears in his eyes, and he kind of welled up for a second. And he's like, "Oh," and then he's like hugging me and like kind of tossing me around, and that was the end of it. But it was like, you know, I'll remember that till there's only 5 things left I can remember, you know, that the day Dick heard me call action the first time on the set. So